Causes of climate change. These are the main causes of climate change. First, humanity's increased use of fossil fuels. Second, deforestation. Third, increasingly intensive agriculture. These three are the possible reasons why climate change happened. I will discuss first the humanity's increased use of fossil fuels. What does it mean? These are the coal, oil, and gas to generate electricity, run cars, and other forms of transport, and also power manufacturing and industry are the reasons why climate change happened. Just for example, the construction and land disturbance required for oil and gas drilling can alter land use and harm local ecosystems by causing erosion and fragmenting wildlife habitats and migration patterns that may result in climate change. The Earth's greenhouse gases trap heat in the atmosphere and warm the planet. The main gases responsible for the greenhouse effect include carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and water vapor, in which all occur naturally, and also fluorinated gases, which are synthetic, can cause also a climate change. Let's proceed to the second, which is deforestation. Why deforestation can cause climate change? Deforestation can cause climate change because living trees absorb and store carbon dioxide. The forests and trees store carbon. When they are degraded or completely cleared, example by fire, a process referred to as deforestation, in which this stored carbon has the potential to be released back into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide and contribute to climate change. Lastly, increasingly intensive agriculture. Why it is belong and it cause climate change? It can cause climate change because it emits greenhouse gases like methane and nitrous oxide. Producing more food out of the land that is already used for agriculture often requires heavier use of nitrogen-based fertilizers, in which it turn release nitrous oxide emissions and contribute to climate change. Intensive agriculture and fertilizer use also release nitrates to the soil and to water bodies. I have here a short video which explains about climate change and about what are the reasons why climate change happened.
Human activities, from pollution to overpopulation, are driving up the Earth's temperature and fundamentally changing the world around us. The main cause is a phenomenon known as the greenhouse effect. Gases in the atmosphere, such as water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and chlorofluorocarbons, let the sun's light in, but keep some of the heat from escaping, like the glass walls of a greenhouse. The more greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, the more heat gets trapped, strengthening the greenhouse effect and increasing the Earth's temperature. Human activities, like the burning of fossil fuels, have increased the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere by more than a third since the Industrial Revolution. The rapid increase in greenhouse gases in the atmosphere has warmed the planet at an alarming rate. While Earth's climate has fluctuated in the past, atmospheric carbon dioxide hasn't reached today's levels in hundreds of thousands of years. Climate change has consequences for our oceans, our weather, our food sources, and our health. Ice sheets, such as Greenland and Antarctica, are melting. The extra water that was once held in glaciers causes sea levels to rise and spills out of the oceans, flooding coastal regions. Warmer temperatures also make weather more extreme. This means not only more intense major storms, floods, and heavy snowfall, but also longer and more frequent droughts. These changes in weather pose challenges. Growing crops becomes more difficult. The areas where plants and animals can live shift, and water supplies are diminished. In addition to creating new agricultural challenges, climate change can directly affect people's physical health. In urban areas, the warmer atmosphere creates an environment that traps and increases the amount of smog. This is because smog contains ozone particles, which increase rapidly at higher temperatures. Exposure to higher levels of smog can cause health problems such as asthma, heart disease, and lung cancer. While the rapid rate of climate change is caused by humans, humans are also the ones who can combat it. If we work to replace fossil fuels with renewable energy sources like solar and wind, which don't produce greenhouse gas emissions, we might still be able to prevent some of the worst effects of climate change.
Apply STS concepts to the issue of climate change. The issue of global climate change brings together the realms of scientific inquiry, technology choice, and social discourse in a manner and with an urgency that are rather unique in the area of science, technology, and society. Global climate change is the first instance of an unintended consequence of technological development with effects that are truly universal. It represents a process, the repercussions of which are being felt not only by every human being but also by every living thing on Earth, one that has the potential to change the face of the planet itself. Understanding the true nature of this problem and devising an effective response to it will require input from every field of inquiry, from biology and chemistry to ethics and education, from anthropology and policy studies to mathematics and computer science. Science, technology, and society as an approach to inquiry dedicated to integrating knowledge from a broad spectrum of disciplines is well suited to the task of providing the interdisciplinary perspective necessary to fully explore the issue of global climate change. Most of the research directed to this issue has been conducted within the boundaries of the various traditional disciplines. STS underpins the global consensus on the need for action. New technologies and effective innovation policies will help spur low carbon innovation, support the creation of new carbon business models, and help in phasing out polluting ones.
Energy crisis. What is energy crisis? The energy crisis is the concern that the world's demand on the limited of natural resources that are used to power industrial society are diminishing as the demand rises. These natural resources are in limited supply. While they do occur naturally, it can take hundreds of thousands of years to replenish the stores. In other words, energy crisis means that there is a higher demand than supply of energy. The energy crisis is a broad and complex topic. Most people don't feel connected to its reality unless the price of gas at the pump goes up or there are lines at the gas station. The energy crisis is something that is ongoing and getting worse, despite many efforts. The reason for this is that there is not a broad understanding of the complex causes and solutions for the energy crisis that will allow for an effort to happen that will resolve it. Yes, energy crisis cannot be noticed unless it affects us, and it cannot be resolved without fully understanding the importance of energy and how we can preserve it. Various causes of the global energy crisis. It would be easy to point the finger at one practice or industry and lay the blame for the entire energy crisis at their door. But that would be a very naive and unrealistic interpretation of the cause of the crisis. Example, imagine that one company consumes energy as much as 5 households per day. Now the mindset of the people will blame the company for overconsumption of energy. On the other hand, if 5 households consumes as equal as one company, we are now forgetting the fact that there are more households than companies. We have just forgotten this fact because we have placed the blame on one company. The mindset of the people is that it is very easy and convenient for them to blame one person for all the problems, not knowing that they too themselves are also contributing to these problems. Now, the first various causes of the global energy crisis. Overconsumption. The energy crisis is a result of many different strains on our natural resources, not just one. There is a strain on fossil fuels such as oil, gas, and coal due to overconsumption, which then in turn can put a strain on our water and oxygen resources by causing pollution. We are taking fossil fuels more than it could regenerate, depleting their reserves until we run out of sources. Because of overconsumption, the demand rises, and if the demand rises, then there will be many consumers that will cause pollution. Second is overpopulation. Another cause of the crisis has been a steady increase in the world's population and its demand for fuel and products. No matter what type of food or products you choose to use, from fair trade and organic to those made from petroleum products in a sweatshop, not one of them is made or transported without a significant drain on our energy resources. Overpopulation is one of the various causes of the global energy crisis because if there are more people, then demands would increase, putting a strain into our natural resources and depleting them. Third is the poor infrastructure. Aging infrastructure of power generating equipment is yet another reason for energy shortage. Most of the energy producing firms keep on using outdated equipment that restricts the production of energy. It is the responsibility of utilities to keep on upgrading the infrastructure and set a high standard of performance. Poor infrastructure of energy generating equipment means that this outdated equipment cannot cope up with the developing and high demands for energy, leading to the cause of energy crisis. Fourth is the unexplored renewable energy options. Renewable energy still remains unused in most of the countries. Most of the energy comes from non-renewable sources like coal. It therefore remains the top choice to produce energy. Unless we give renewable energy a serious thought, the problem of energy crisis cannot be solved. Renewable energy sources can reduce our dependence on fossil fuels and also helps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We know that the depleting energy sources like the fossil fuels is in fact running out, and yet we still turn to the non-renewable sources. And how can we supply the high demands of energy if we kept on using the depleting non-renewable energy and not giving too much attention to the renewable ones? Third is the poor infrastructure. Fifth is the delay in commissioning of power plants. In a few countries, there is a significant delay in the commissioning of new power plants that can fill the gap between demand and supply of energy. The result is that old plants come under huge stress to meet the daily demand for power. When supply doesn't match demand, it results in load shedding and breakdown. With the increasing high demands for energy, our old power plants cannot keep up with the increasing demands. And if they are delaying the commissioning of new power plants, then there would be an energy crisis because the old power plants cannot supply the high demands. 6 is wastage of energy. In most parts of the world, people do not realize the importance of conserving energy. It is only limited to books, the internet, newspaper ads, lip service, and seminars. Unless we give it a serious thought, things are not going to change anytime sooner. Wastage of energy is one of the causes of energy crisis because if a person is consuming more energy, then the production companies or the power plants would also increase their supply to meet the demand. And if this happens, then it slowly depletes our natural resources, causing to an energy crisis. Seventh is the poor distribution system. Frequent tripping and breakdown are a result of a poor distribution system. A community can experience energy crisis if there is a poor infrastructure of energy generating plants, since these older plants and their system is likely not able to cope up with the high demands, and overloading these power plants can cause breakdowns, leading to an energy crisis. 8 is the major accidents and natural calamities. Major accidents like pipeline bursts and natural calamities like the eruption of volcanoes, floods, earthquakes can also cause interruptions to energy supplies. The huge gap between supply and demand for energy can raise the price of essential items, which can give rise to inflation. One of the unpredictable causes of energy crisis is when the power generating plants are damaged due to natural calamities or just because of wear and tear or accidents. Then it would delay the distribution of energy for some time because the plants needed some time to be repaired before continuing its productions. Again, an energy crisis is when the demands are higher than the supply or when there is a limited supply of energy. Ninth is the wars and attacks. Wars between countries can also hamper the supply of energy, especially if it happens in Middle East. We all know that the Middle East is one of the areas in the world with the highest oil reserve. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, UAE, or Qatar. That's what happened during the 1990 Gulf War, when the price of oil reached its peak, causing global shortages and created major problems for energy consumers. Like the one that is happening right now where Russia is invading Ukraine. We all know that Russia is one of the world's biggest oil producer. If they are restricted by other countries, then it would halt their export on oil, causing to a shortage around the world and leading to an energy crisis because most of the power generating plants are powered by oil. Various effects of the global energy crisis. The growth of human civilization has led to an increase in the consumption of traditional sources of energy. The very basic source of energy is our precious fossil fuels. The usage of all these sources is bound to produce certain effects. Some important effects of the global energy crisis are as follows. The first, various effects of the global energy crisis. Environmental effects. Energy is produced by the burning of non-renewable fossil fuels. This does not only affect the global resources of fossil fuels, but it also affects the environment. The burning of fossil fuels releases greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and others. These gases create a blanket on the Earth's surface which prevents the release of the short rays of the sun by night. Thus, the energy crisis facilitates making the Earth a warmer place by promoting global warming. Second is the increasing prices of the fuel reserves. As the use of fossil fuels increases, the cost of these resources increases too. We must remember that the quantity in which these fossil fuels are available is limited. As we keep on using these sources, the amount of these fossil fuels further decreases. With every passing day, the demand for these fuels increases daily, while their available quantity decreases every day. This leads to an immense increase in the price of fossil fuels, causing the price to increase day in and day out. This creates a huge economic disturbance across the globe. So if we keep using fossil fuels, then the reserves would decrease. And if the reserves would decrease, then its price would increase. Third is the political disturbances. The fact that the energy crisis creates some socio-economic disturbances also tells us that this global energy crisis also creates a lot of political disturbances across the globe. The quest for fossil fuels is one of the major causes of the same. Besides, with the failure of the energy markets, we see a crash in not only the global economy but also a crash of the energy available. All these are enough to give rise to the various socio-political disturbances. Fourth is the effect on the tourism industry. The tourism industry is largely dependent on the rise and fall of fuel prices. The tremendous rise of the fuel prices that comes as a result of the energy crisis affects the tourism industry pretty adversely. With the increase in fuel prices, there is an increase in the cost of tourism as well. As a result of this, there are many who cannot afford the same. And as a result of all this, it is the tourism industry that suffers. This ends my report on the various causes and effects of the energy crisis.
By which energy crisis can be prevented. Before that, let's discuss first the energy crisis. This energy crisis is the concern that the world's demands on the limited natural resources that are used to power industrial society are diminishing as the demand rises. These natural resources are in limited supply. While they do occur naturally, it can take hundreds of thousands of years to replenish the stores. The governments and concerned individuals are working together to make the use of renewable resources a priority and to lessen the irresponsible use of natural supplies through increased conservation. In order to prevent this crisis, we can take a number of steps. First, try and depend more on renewable energy sources. Because renewable energy provides reliable power supplies and fuel diversification in which it enhances energy security and lower risk of fuel spills while reducing the need for imported fuels. Also, it helps to conserve the nation's natural resources. Second, use products that are more energy efficient can help also to prevent the energy crisis because improving energy efficiency can lower individual utility bills and it creates jobs and help stabilize electricity prices and vitality. Third, make use of lightning control measures. Fourth, maintain climate change. Maintaining our climate change is a big help to prevent this energy crisis because if we maintain our climate change, if we don't maintain our climate change, there is a possible that the energy demand would increase during heat waves. Lastly, try and make use of energy audit features. Why? Because energy audit will help to understand more about the waste energy and fuel are used in any industry, and it helps in identifying the areas where waste can occur and where scope for improvement exists. It is also critical that we utilize less energy by improving and modernizing energy infrastructure, such as smart grid solutions and smart cities in order to avoid an energy crisis. It's also critical that we replace old gadgets with energy-efficient alternatives such as LEDs or LEDs in favor of standard light bulbs.